I think the title of my little section here is Artist to Advocate. So I am kind of in church today because I spent 22 years with a Christian rock band called Third Day, and we had a lot of tremendous success. We won 4 Grammy Awards, an American Music Award, a lot of really cool stuff. And somewhere around along the way, as we started winning all these awards, does anyone remember the Seinfeld episode where they were talking about Christian music and with Elaine and George? Does anyone remember that at all? Yeah, it was a great one. So, but I think George is saying, I like Christian music. They're not like these real musicians with their fancy shoes. So you can see all their fancy shoes as you go through the rest of the museum. But we kind of figured out as we started having success that when people would tease Christian music, that at some point, they're making fun of us. We, as a rock band, we always kind of felt that we were outside of it. And in about 2000, we had one of those award show moments. It was the biggest awards in Christian music were called the Dove Awards, and they gave us an award for the Artist of the Year. And I remember being backstage with my bandmates, and I said, now whenever they make fun of Christian music, it's us they're talking about. We kind of have this mantle now, and what are we going to do with it? About 2 months later, I got invited to a really unique event where Bono came to Nashville and shared with us as Christian artists about what was happening with the pandemic of AIDS in Africa. And I hadn't heard anything about it. It wasn't on our news at the time. If it was maybe the last 5 seconds before they went to commercials. And he was sharing about what was going on with extreme poverty, what was going on with AIDS, and it really got our attention. But what got our attention the most was a statistic that he shared, and I don't have it exactly right. I was trying to find it, but statistics tend to disappear after 16 years. But basically what they shared is at the time that evangelical Christians were no more likely than anyone else to want to respond to the crisis of AIDS in Africa than just the average American citizen, that somehow this issue just didn't resonate with them. And I remember leaving that meeting, and that just stuck with me. And I said, that doesn't represent me, and that doesn't represent the audience that we would sing for every day. And so I kind of set out to prove that statistic wrong. And what I found along the way, so this is just kind of a little recap, is I found that we did run into some real objections from the faith community. And the first thing that we ran into, and this is around 2000, 2001, is a lot of evangelical Christians would say, well, this isn't the government's job to care for the poor. This is our job as the church. And to which I would try to respond, and a lot of times on stage in between we'd play, so I'd have to be delicate, but I'd say, that seems like a really lousy argument if we're not doing our job. So if this issue of AIDS and poverty, it was a bigger issue than the church was able to deal with. So it's a pretty weak argument to say, well, this isn't the government's job, it's just ours. But that would resonate somewhat. What I found that would resonate even better with people is when I would make a financial argument. And I'd say, how many of you guys pay taxes? To which everyone reluctantly raises their hand. And I said, so your money's got to go to something one way or the other. Wouldn't it be cool if it went to something that was really in line with our values, that was really in line with the scripture, in line with the gospel that's supposed to be good news for the poor? And what I found is there was the objection that I think most people still encounter today, is if you just ask somebody on the street or at a dinner party, how much of our budget would you guess goes to foreign aid and goes to fight poverty? The average that I've gotten in my unofficial dinner party surveys with generous servings of wine is that somewhere between 20 to 25% is what the average result that people tell me is they think that we're giving. And so it's no wonder that it kind of breeds this environment that we're in right now where almost everyone that you encounter says, well, we need to have an America first mentality. And I want to share a few stories that I think speak against that. First of all, as we've all learned today, we in fact give less than 1% of our budget. We invest less than 1% of our budget to fight these issues. It's really relatively a very small amount, but it yields such a great return. But what it really illustrated that for me is after we met with Bono, we started doing everything we could, and it was awesome to see our audience respond to this. We worked with a lot of partner organizations. We worked with World Vision and Habitat for Humanity, the One Campaign, and what was interesting was training our audience, in largely evangelical Christians, that they had a voice and that they could use their voice to make a difference. There was almost this idea that it was easier to just write a check. And so it was really great advocating for the One Campaign, because it's always nice when you're asking someone to just sign their name to something, to lend their voice, and, as opposed to writing a check. It's an easier ask. But what we found with the One Campaign is it magnified that voice, and it strengthened it. And I remember in 2003 when PEPFAR when PEPFAR was announced, I remember the State of the Union speech when George W. Bush announced it, and I ran around the room in this like victory march, and I was celebrating, and I thought we were done. I thought that was the finish line, and then the One Campaign just gets really annoying because they keep on sending you emails and they keep on reminding you that we haven't yet tackled this problem. So I thought we were there, but then when I found out is, one thing that you can learn at this convention is they can pass something once, but then they have to repass it the next year and then repass it the next year. I thought we were all set, but there was still so much work to do. But it's been awesome to see just how effective that was. But as the discussion with our audience changed, we saw that evangelical Christians really started to get this, and largely because President George W. Bush really got this issue, and that kind of his using that pulpit to advocate for these issues, it trickled down into all of the middle America where we spent a lot of our time touring. But I remember in 2011, it was at the 1 year anniversary of the earthquake in Haiti, and we took a trip to Haiti. And it was one of those, we just wanted to kind of get some work done and see if we could help and kind of learn about the problem, but we were a band, so of course there was a publicist there that had to take pictures and try to exploit it as much as possible. But so they took this picture of us distributing a USAID, just rice in these villages. We were just unloading a truck. And then it went on Facebook, and it seems like Facebook was created for everyone to be a snarky expert about everything. So we saw the Facebook feed just starts blowing up, but it had this sentiment that I still feel like exists today, is that over and over again, I saw the sentiment expressed, again, I think largely from conservative, more evangelical Christians, of why are you helping people overseas when we have our own problems here at home? And I think that's a sentiment that we've heard in the last 6 months. So it's a sentiment that we've heard in this debate, this idea that we have our own problems, and it should be America first before we worry about these problems around the world. And so having had all these experiences all over the world and really encountered extreme poverty, and I was looking up all this data to refute that sentiment and talk about times where I held children in my arms that passed away that very same day, and all these experiences that had broken my heart. And I wanted to just, really respond to this person on Facebook. It was before we all learned you can never win those arguments. But I looked through, and one of our fans had a response that was so much better and so much more articulate than anything I could have ever said. And their response from a spiritual perspective, they just said, maybe when God looks at the world, God doesn't see a political map. He doesn't see all these lines. Maybe he just sees his children and he loves them all. I think that's when we talk about patriotism and pride in America, I don't think it's about being America first. I think it's about being a country that models that to the world so we have something to be proud of. And I'm here just as a person like you guys to say that being a part of this work has been the most significant in my life. And I know that it makes a difference. I've seen it firsthand. The progress is ridiculous. The progress that we've made in such a short amount of time, the stats, the data, the millions of lives saved, I think is going to be one of our country's greatest legacies. that we have, and the thing that is something to be patriotic and proud of as Americans. So I think I just want to leave you guys with a little bit of a challenge, and I think as we're all here in different capacities at this convention, I think we're in a season where we can't wait for our politicians to lead. I don't think we can. I think there's kind of an atmosphere right now that's been hinted at all day where there's sort of they check things by the polls, where they go, well, here's an easy issue, and this is the easiest issue of all. Especially if conservative wants to get a standing ovation, all they have to do is get on that much larger stage tonight or the next day and say, and we're tired of sending our monies overseas. We need to spend it here at home, even though it's completely baseless and inaccurate. They can get an easy win with that, and we got to beat them to it. It's time for us to lead and not wait for our leaders to lead. We need to be speaking truth to power. We need those. What I've learned over these last 15 years is those letters, those answering those annoying emails and text messages that the one campaign just sends you over and over and over again. Once you think you're already done, it's like you pass PEPFAR, all of a sudden we're going to electrify Africa. I thought we were done. But they keep coming, but it works. And what I've learned is there's so much that we're seeing, in this season where our political system is broken, but this is the one thing we do right. And this is an issue where I've seen both Republicans and Democrats, they listen to us. And so instead of waiting for them, my challenge is for each one of us. I don't know how we can speak to policy. The minds that have been speaking today have been brilliant. But I know that if we go to our elected officials and we let them know that we care about this, and we let them know even if there's another ideology aligned with, especially if we're here going, hey, I was raised a Republican, I was raised a conservative Christian, but this matters to me. This matters to who we are as a country. If we speak that truth to power, I know that we can reach the finish line and truly make poverty history. Thank you.